Again? Robotnik outruns Sonic again? Hello everybody and welcome back. My name's Argonaut, and in this video we're going to be taking a look back at Sonic 4 Episode 1, Sega's initial attempt at a revival of classic Sonic back in 2010, including its development history, story, and gameplay, as well as my thoughts on it. But, before all that, if you like this video and want to see more like it, then feel free to click that subscribe button to keep up with me. I'd really appreciate it. And, now, with all that shameless promotion out of the way, on with the video. Back in 2009, a few years after the failure of Sonic 06, and after the mixed reviews of Sonic Unleashed just a year prior, Sega wanted to try to take a step back and appease fans of the classic Sonic series by returning the series back to its roots. A new classic-themed game with the company Dimps, the very same people that developed the Sonic Advance series, developing it, along with help from Sonic Team themselves, who were also actually busy working on Sonic Generation during this time. This new game would have 2D levels, no voice acting, and a simple plot. But, to also pull in fans of the new modern Sonic, it would also feature modern Sonic and Eggman's designs, as well as the homing attack from the modern games. This new game would supposedly be called Sonic the Portable, and would be a Sonic spin-off that would release to mobile devices. That is, until, again supposedly, Sega of America would make the decision to release it to all consoles, and rebrand the game as Sonic the Hedgehog 4, a game taking place after the events of Sonic & Knuckles, which I'm going to refer to as Sonic 3 instead of Sonic & Knuckles from this point onward. The game was in development for a year and a half, and was released on October 7th of 2010 for iOS, October 11th for the Wii, October 12th for PS3, and October 13th for the 360, and was planned for 3 episodes. The very first time I played Sonic 4 was back on release day. I was 19 at the time and bought it for $15. Because can you believe that's actually what they charged for this game on release? And now, come a little bit closer, because I have a secret to tell you. A little bit closer, a little bit closer. Between you and me, I actually recall really liking Sonic 4. Yes, that's right. Back when it came out, I really liked Sonic 4. So much that not only did I collect all the Chaos Emeralds, I kinda had to get my money's worth anyway, you know? But I also earned all the trophies, including the Untouchable trophy, which I truly recall being an issue and a half. Now, for anybody that didn't know, right after I finished making my Sonic Adventure 2 video, my PS3 actually crapped out on me. But, luckily my girlfriend had her old PS3 lying around, which she actually let me have, so, thanks to her, I get to have the joy of playing Sonic 4 all these years later. But, being real here, over the years, Sonic 4 has gotten a really bad rep. After 16 years, will Sonic 4 still be as good as I remembered it being? Or will my opinion this time around change? With that, let's move on to the gameplay section. Alright, now, unfortunately, I've lost all my save data for Sonic 4, and couldn't even find it on the cloud. Even worse, for some reason, PSN doesn't even remember that I bought Sonic 4 to begin with, which I've never had happen to me before. It's weird that it remembers that I bought Episode 2, but not Episode 1. You can look at the date of my trophies here and see that I played through the whole thing back in 2010. So, I ended up buying Sonic 4 again for about $7 just to play it. But now, actually moving on to the story of the game, the devs really did keep it super simple this time around. After the events of Sonic 3, Sonic decided to go off by himself to explore new territories, and Robotnik decides to upgrade his past inventions so he can take Sonic out. And now, moving on to the gameplay of this game, Sonic controls like how he did in Sonic 2. He can run, jump, and spin dash, but now, in this game he can also use the homing attack as well by double tapping the jump button, which is kinda weird because the homing attack was basically created so Sonic could hit enemies easier after he went 3D, but I guess they were also trying to appeal to modern players here as well, Now, the physics of this game were weird to me. It feels like Sonic is trying to run through a world where the air is made of jello, and every other thing would make you lose momentum. There were a couple of points I actually got stuck standing at a 45-degree angle, almost, and the best way to get him moving for me was to use the homing attack for a burst of momentum. And, speaking of the homing attack, I've noticed that whenever I used it, I would lose all momentum and be frozen in place in the air for about a second before being able to move again. Not to mention, grabbing an air bubble and the water levels were the same thing. Full loss of momentum, and you were stuck in place for a second. Now in terms of levels, Sonic 4 has 4 zones, each with 3 acts and a boss fight. Now, unlike traditional Sonic games, you're actually free to choose whichever zone and act that you want to tackle. Almost kinda like a Mega Man game. Now, while I don't fully disagree with this choice, I don't think they should have made it so that you could access Act 2 and Act 3 of different zones. I would have preferred it if you had access to only Act 1 of each zone and had to unlock the others. And the goal for the level is the same as always, just make it to the end. The levels in Sonic 4 rely on a bunch more platforming and timing than the modern style games before it did. My only problem with this is that Sonic feels like he's again moving through a world where the air is made out of jello, so I'd have trouble sometimes when I had to be quick to jump from platform to platform with certain timing, leading to some cheap deaths. And I found that more often than not, the levels tended to put some final big obstacle, usually involving a big old pitfall, right before the goal line, which would typically screw you out of your chance at a Chaos Emerald. And, speaking of the Chaos Emeralds this time around, you don't have to search for a giant ring or reach a signpost with 50 rings. That's right, we're back to the basics where you just have to make it to the end holding at least 50 rings, where you'll see a giant ring appear. Jump through that, and you get taken to the special zone. And, for the special zone of this game, it brings back the maze from Sonic 1. Although, this time, instead of controlling Sonic, you're able to rotate and control the maze. You have to navigate Sonic to the end of the maze before running out of time, and without touching the exit portals, to earn a Chaos Emerald. Something that I actually find really cool here is that you can only earn 1 Chaos Emerald per zone, so you can't just keep replaying the same act again and again and again to get into the special zone and earn them all, which at least encourages a bit of replayability, although, since you're back to just having to finish a level with 50 rings again, it doesn't really encourage exploration like how Sonic 2 and 3 did. And once you get all the Chaos Emeralds, you unlock Super Sonic, and by now you already know the drill. Get 50 rings and you can go Super, giving you super speed and invulnerability. And, unlike Sonic 3, there's no bonus stage at the end of the game for Super Sonic and Sonic 4. And now, moving on to the bosses. They're pretty much all recycled from Sonic 1 and 2 with a couple of new attacks. The Wrecking Ball boss from the first Green Hill Zone, the Casino boss from Sonic 2, the Underwater Obstacle Course from Sonic 1, and the 4th boss that feels like a remix version of the Water boss from Sonic CD, combined with a boss from Sonic 3. Beating all the bosses will unlock the Egg Station Zone, where you basically do a boss rush, which is also pretty reminiscent of Mega Man by the way, which finally culminates in one last boss battle against Robotnik, where he's able to outrun Sonic again, leading you to have to fight the Death Egg robot. And this fight is pretty much the same as it was in Sonic 2, only this time you don't have to worry about the weird hitboxes, and the game actually gives you rings beforehand this time around. And for the end of the game, it ends pretty much just like Sonic 1, with Sonic running through a field of little woodland creatures. Although, if you got all the Chaos Emeralds, he'll collect the rings and go Super during the sequence. And after the credits, the game will hint Metal Sonic is going to be in Episode 2. And if you didn't get all the Chaos Emeralds, it'll instead just be Robotnik saying try again. But now with that, let's move on to how the game did after it released. In August of 2011, Sega confirmed that Sonic 4 had sold over 1 million copies, and it would go on to get its second installment in 2012 with Sonic 4 Episode 2. Reviews for Episode 1 at the time seemed relatively mixed, with it getting a worse and worse reputation as time went on, to the point where fans now just see it as being this horrible game, to the point where nowadays Sonic 4 is no longer seen as canon anymore, but Sonic Mania is. But with that, now it's time for my thoughts on Sonic 4. Sega never officially confirmed that Sonic 4 is supposed to be a mobile game, but I mean, come on! Them calling this game Sonic 4 was an insult. They should have called it Sonic Remastered or something. If there's one thing I hate, it's when companies will use a name with no intention to follow that name's legacy. A sequel should use and improve upon what its predecessors did. Take Crash, for example. He's had a ton of games since Naughty Dog moved on, but nobody dared to call it Crash 4 until over 20 years later. Now, did they use the name to attract people? Yes, but at the same time, it was built by people that obviously cared enough, and they built upon what Crashes 1 through 3 did, while at the same time respected the story well enough. For Sonic 4, I mean, look at Sonic's opening animation. Now, compare that to Sonic 1. And then compare that to Sonic Mania. They didn't even bother to have anything besides just his hand move. And, okay, this game's supposed to take place after Sonic 3, but they just stripped so much away from it to the point where it's basically Sonic 1 again. In general, it feels pretty soulless. Like, okay, Sonic 2 gave us Tails, the Spin Dash, and one of the hardest last bosses of a classic Sonic game. Sonic CD, which was supposed to be a remake of Sonic 1 itself, gave us the time travel mechanic, Metal Sonic, Amy, and arguably some of the best music the classic series has to offer. Sonic 3 gave us so much that I'd be here for a while talking about it, and hell, even for Sonic Advance 2, which I haven't played in about 20 years or so, I can still remember that getting the Chaos Emeralds were a chore, and I'll always remember that last boss fight, along with Sonic saving Cream's mother at the end. What type of individuality does Sonic 4 bring us? The homing attack in a classic game? If they had really wanted to make a Sonic 4, the first thing they would have done is at least use a graphics engine and use a character model like the one used in Sonic Generations, since it was in development at around the same time, and make it seem like classic Sonic was actually getting a new adventure. Although, I don't really mind too much how it looks as it is, and I also like how Sonic becomes a little bit blurry when he's running at full speed. I feel like I'm being unnecessarily mean to this game since it's basically just a mobile game that got ported to consoles, but heavy is the head that bears the crown name that is Sonic 4. People are going to have these expectations and make these comparisons. And for me personally, this is coming hot off of the heels of finishing up Sonic Mania recently. So, I'm really seeing some things here. Since it was supposed to be episodic, I guess I can look past how few zones there are in this game, since all 3 episodes were supposed to make up one full game. Although, $9.99 would have been a better launch price than $15. But, hey, at least they bothered to give you Supersonic in this game. And, unfortunately, even after having just played it, I feel like a fair amount of the levels were somewhat forgettable. Although I enjoyed the level where the wall closes in on you and you have to outrun it, and I also actually did enjoy most of the boss fights, especially the last one, although the homing attack really had some knockback whenever you used it. Like, sure, all the bosses are easy, but I did have some fun. The only level I really remember hating off the top of my head was the Labyrinth level where you had to use a torch for your field of vision. Because, yeah, that's what I want in a Sonic game. A torch mechanic that really forces you to go slow. In conclusion, was Sonic 4 a good Sonic game? Honestly, if Sega had stuck with their original plan and named it Sonic Portable and only released it for mobile devices, this would have been seen as an alright game that would probably eventually be forgotten about roughly 5 or 6 years later. But, unfortunately, that's not what happened. As a supposed mainline game that happens after Sonic 3, Sonic 4 is pretty awful, and strips away a lot that the original trilogy had built, and fans are forever going to remember it as much as they try to forget about it, and with Sonic Mania coming out, Sonic 4 will forever live in infamy as that one poor attempt at a sequel to the classic trilogy. Although, if you know somebody that's never actually played or seen a Sonic game before, they might actually think this one is pretty decent if you introduce it to them. And those are my thoughts about Sonic 4. Sega's first attempt at a sequel to the original trilogy. Did you agree with me? Did you disagree? What are your thoughts about Sonic 4? I would love to hear from you. And, with that being said, we're going to be continuing our Sonic Marathon with Sonic 4 Episode 2. I hope to see you there, and until then, I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching.